In this course, we're going to talk a lot about Veeam backup and replication, but let's talk about what a backup is. A backup is usually a server that's on site or in the cloud, and it enables copies of all data, files, applications, and databases. It combines hardware and software technologies that provide backup storage and restoration to connected computers, servers, and related devices. And this can include both clients as well as server backups. And we can back up on premises and online as well. There's also cloud resource backups. Basically, what this means is we can back up on premises to the cloud, or from the cloud back to on premises, or on premises to on premises and cloud to cloud. So all the different combinations are met when we use our Veeam backup application. And one of the ways that backups work, and this can apply to many different products, is what's called Volume Shadow. What Volume Shadow does is it can back up an open file by making a copy of that file and then backing up the copy rather than the original. So that way the original won't get corrupt. We can also enable Volume Shadow, which allows us to create a special separate partition that's hidden that will allow us to have various different versions of files as they've changed, as users have made changes to them or the applications have made changes to them. And in an upcoming video, we'll take a look at how we can enable Volume Shadow. Linux and Windows backups, these make up the majority of all different types of backups. And Veeam has no problem in backing up either of these operating systems, no matter what version. And there's different storage types. We can use storage that's on premises, such as NAS or storage area networks connected with iSCSI. We can use local storage, and we can use other types of storage depending on what product you're using. Built into every Windows operating system is going to be a Windows Server backup or Linux backup application that is free. However, it doesn't have all the features that a product like Veeam has, which we'll be demonstrating. Azure and Amazon Web Services are the two most popular cloud services, and we can back up to those as well as other products. System state and registry backups are included in Veeam backups, and that's very important because if we need to do what's called a bare metal restoration, we can restore to another piece of hardware and bring it right back to its original state prior to any type of disaster. In your experience, maybe you can think of a disaster that happened to you where this type of backup could have kept your data safe. I recall a time where a new client called me to restore their corrupt Active Directory database. I went on site and found their backups only included files and no system state. Without the system state, there was no way to restore their Active Directory database. Be sure to include the system state in your backups. And we do that with restoration. We can restore an entire operating system. And that includes not just files and folders, but it can include Active Directory, as well as many other files that make up that operating system. You don't have to do it that way. You can also just back up and restore individual files and folders, and you can also do this with virtual machines. So why is it important to know Windows and Linux server backups? Well, on the Windows side, Windows makes up 95% of all different companies and organizations in very large enterprises, such as the Fortune 500. And they're using this on premises. Although there is an Azure Active Directory and Azure Active Directory Domain Services, we're still seeing the majority of all organizations using Active Directory on premises. So it's important to understand when you're backing up Windows servers, what it is you're backing up in case you need to do a restoration. Now, Linux, on the other hand, outsells Windows in application servers. So if you're looking at an application server, such as File and Print, or a spam filter, or an email server, they do outsell Windows in those types of application servers. So it's important to make sure that you have a good knowledge of what it is that you're backing up when it comes to those. And of course, we can back up Azure and AWS as they host virtual machines on both types of operating systems. So you're going to see various different versions of Windows Server and clients that you can back up in various different versions of servers and clients on Linux. There's different backup styles that we need to be familiar with as well, such as the file level backup. This is quick with little setup time. However, it can't do a full restore. It can't do like a bare metal restore or entire operating system restore. It can't back up open files, and it backs up, however, to almost any type of media. You'll see this in many different operating systems on Windows, where it just allows you to back up, say, important files and folders, but not the entire operating system. However, Windows Server Backup does allow you to back up an entire operating system. It doesn't have what Veeam has, and that is Veeam will allow you to back up multiple different servers, multiple different operating systems, all from one server, whereas Windows Server Backup cannot do that. Veeam backs up using what's called block level backup. It does take longer to set up, but it can do a full restoration, and it can back up open files as well. And it can back up to more different types of media than built-in backup programs. Veeam Backup can back up virtual and physical operating systems. It can do what's called full backups or incremental, which we'll talk about further in more detail in an upcoming video. It does not, however, offer differential backups, and there is a difference between those two. Synthetic images are an interesting feature, and basically what it allows you to do is to take a full backup, then take incremental backups, which basically backs up anything that's changed since the last backup, and it creates a single backup with the most up-to-date backup that you can use to restore. The incremental backups use change block tracking and can use multiple incremental backups to create that synthetic backup. This takes all of the previous incrementals and the last full and creates this single image. Backing up and restoring data is an essential part of every corporate entity in the modern world. Understanding how to back up, secure, and restore data is an important administrative role.